I want you to drop everything you're watching and reading, and this very moment, go and read Ichi the Witch. That's the video. Case closed. I'm out of here. Okay, but seriously, Ichi the Witch is a series that has been in Weekly Shonen Jump for roughly a year now, a little over that, and my god, has it been just absolutely incredible to read every single week. If you've been on the channel for at least a year at this point, you probably would have seen me doing a review, first impressions of the first 2 chapters of the manga, and you probably know my first impressions of it being pretty positive overall. And if you've been with me for a little while longer, you also know that I actually talk about this on a weekly basis over on my podcast, Shonen Pulse, over on the Panel Focus YouTube channel, with 3 other YouTubers, Nox, Nyatogami, and Papa Trafi, along with 8 other manga from 3 separate magazines. And each of which tends to be one of the ones that we have a lot to talk about the most. Link to our podcast in the description down below. Shameless plug aside, this manga has been an absolute joy to read for the past year, and I see it continuously growing with every single chapter. Whether in popularity and discussion online, I do think that this series is something special and is leading up to be one of Jump's current big hits, but it just needs that little extra push that it needs. But luckily enough, it has the fan base. It has the drive from people that want to give this series a shot, and it is for many, many reasons, which we'll get into today as we talk about why you should be reading Ichi the Witch. But before we talk about anything, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys the content I make here on the channel, and it shows you want to see more. If you want to see more from me outside of the podcast I mentioned earlier, I also have a second channel where I talk about comic books called GW Comics. Link in the description below. That's also another passion project of mine where I talk about comic books, and I have a lot of fun over there as well. So yes, I know it's been a while since I've done a recommendation video. It has been well over a year at this point, and I have been biting at the heels to make many, many, many of these due to all the different series, new and old, that I am currently reading and even catching up on. But Ichi the Witch is one I've been wanting to make a video on for so long, as it has slowly been getting up in popularity over the last year. And it's not hard to see why. One of the main reasons why, when Ichi the Witch was initially announced, that the anime and manga community were getting very excited about it for, was the team behind it. The artist-writer duo of Osamu Nishi and Shiro Usazaki. And if those names aren't familiar to anyone listening right now, Osamu Nishi is the mangaka of Welcome to Demon School Iruma-kun, the 400 plus chapter manga from Weekly Shonen Champion. You know, the same manga that Baki the Grappler is in also. Yes, if you didn't realize that already, Baki is a shonen series for the most part. It's very hard to tell with a lot of shit that happens in Baki, but what can you do? Demographics don't really mean much when it comes to manga most of the time anyway. But Osamu Nishi is incredibly popular online due to not just her beautiful artwork, but the way she's able to weave and make different character stories and motivations, especially through Iruma. That series is insane, and that is essentially that magazine's cash cow, its golden goose, the One Piece essentially of that entire magazine, because Iruma has multiple different spin-offs based off this manga, and it ain't even done. I don't even think it's halfway done. The most prominent one that seems to be more of an action-focused is the Iru Mafia spin-off, which looks insane, and I need to read that as well, and I have to catch up on Iruma. But Iruma is an incredibly popular manga series with 3 seasons of the anime, with a 4th on the way. And outside of doing the artwork and the writing for this manga on its own magazine for Iruma, Nishi decided to start her own series in Weekly Shonen Jump, where she would do the writing. And it shows with how she presents the characters and progresses the plot of the story, and shows that she's adding a lot more of her creative freedom that she usually does in Iruma-kun from the portions of the story that I have witnessed myself through the anime and the early sections of the manga. And so many that flocked to Ichi the Witch were fans of this entire Iruma-kun manga, or just of Nishi herself. And that's only half of the duo that brings Ichi the Witch together. The other side of the coin is Shiro Usazaki, who, if you haven't been in the manga space for the last decade, you would recognize her either on Twitter or from the hit, now cancelled manga, Act Age, which many tend to call it the Oshinoko before Oshinoko was a thing, just without the reincarnation stuff and all that. But Act Age is a topic for an entirely different video. All you need to know is that Usazaki was the artist for this manga, and her artwork is breathtakingly beautiful. Like, I cannot describe how much detail and life radiates from her artwork. She posted on Twitter many times over the years, but she hasn't been on a main or big manga project in a long time, and that was because Act Age got cancelled for actions of the author, because the author was a, let's just say, a messed up human being, and I'm not going to get into it. And so this kind of left a bit of a stain on Usazaki due to her having to do a series by this specific writer. But as years passed, and she kept doing her artwork, and I believe doing a few short stories, one-shots here and there, she has now teamed up with Osamu Nishi to make Ichi the Witch. And from the jump, when you see the artwork in this manga, you can tell it has the same breathtaking nature from Act Age, but you see the improvements that she's made and how she's bringing this into a vast fantasy setting. And I cannot describe how this just grabs you instantly from the first color spread of Chapter 1. And so when it was announced that we're getting Ichi the Witch, a brand new Shonen Jump manga, from two essential legends in the industry in terms of online popularity, Osamu Nishi from, obviously, the Iruma-kun manga and that whole franchise, being the creator of the main series, and Shiro Usazaki, someone who is best known for her beautiful, breathtaking artwork. Put these two together with good writing skills as well as amazing artwork, and the fact that this is Weekly Shonen Jump's actual first artist-writer duo that is primarily of women, you get a lot of buzz around it. A lot of hype, a lot of expectations, and the story delivers. The hype and love for this manga was felt immediately after it dropped. We got fan art all across the manga community, on Twitter especially, of the characters of Ichi and Desscaras from this manga. You can tell that people grabbed onto it and don't want to let it go. But with that whole big backstory and explanation on who the creative team is behind this honest-to-God great manga, what's Ichi the Witch actually about? If you haven't read it yet, then you click on this video to actually understand why you should read this manga. Well, let me just get into the bare basics. Ichi is a mountain boy. He is someone who lives alone in a hut in the mountains. Ever since he was young, his parents essentially abandoned him to fend for himself in the woods, and over the years began to learn how to hunt, to fend for himself in order to survive, and loves the thrill of the hunt, but only truly if it is what he calls death for death. When something wants to kill him, he will fight back with all his force to kill what tries to kill him, or if it's literally just for food, like any hunter would. But what makes this world interesting that surrounds Ichi is that magic and witches exist. In this world, there are these creatures, these magical living entities that are called majiks. Each of these are specific spells or magical entities that can either cause great devastation and harm to humans, or want to actually help them. And there is a way for humans to gain access to the power of this magic or specific spells, and that is through completing the magic's trials. I equate them to how you have some trials in like the Magi manga from the Jins in order for them to pick their king's candidates by having them complete a specific test to prove their worthiness. And in Ichi the Witch, these magics have individual specific trials that once completed, the person can acquire the magic as a gemstone with the spell written on it, so they can be able to cast these specific spells. But that's not all, because in this world, the only ones that are capable of being able to use magic are women. Women are the only ones in the series that have the capability to use magic. They have an entire association to training future witches, to dispatching magics that are causing problems or that are classified as human haters, ones that want to kill and destroy humanity. And so, they're in charge of protecting the average day citizen who can't use magic. And yes, in the series, men cannot use magic. That is until the day the abyssal witch Desscaras, the strongest witch in the world, goes on a mission to finally acquire the King Magic Uroro, who has the powers of enhancing others' magics. And as she is fighting this creature, he reveals the conditions for being acquired, and that essentially means that they have to pierce his heart, but the condition is that no woman can pierce his heart. Basically making it so that since in a world where only women can use magic and acquire them, no witches are able to just hit his heart and acquire him, essentially finding a somewhat loophole to the entire, well, magic acquiring system that was created in this world by majiks. But that is until Ichi shows up by using hunting traps and using his knife to actually deal a sneak attack on Uroro. For some reason, after completing the trial himself, despite him not being a woman or a witch, Ichi somehow acquires Uroro and gains the power to use magic. Now, many in the anime and manga community begin to put some specific pieces together based off the generalized plot. The main character, being a guy, is the only guy that can use magic in a world where only women can use magic. And so, many people that are veterans in the industry tend to equate the baseline structure of this manga's plot of guy in a world where only women can do stuff, but now he can do stuff, and basically the entire main cast are going to be essentially women. People would automatically assume that it would be a trashy harem manga. I mean, that's how some people would assume it based off of the, 2-sentence synopsis of the story of what this series is about. But that doesn't really capture what this series is essentially about. None of that, but people that knew of Osamu Nishi and Shiro Suzaki, and the fact that these two were working together, knew that this wasn't the direction this manga was going to go down. And that was made clear pretty much immediately within the first 4 to 5 chapters, as we now slowly get introduced to the world of witches. We get to see the Witch Association, with the head being Marigold, the head researcher Shirobadana. We get to meet Chika Shirone, the prophecy magic. We get to see Togai's, essentially Desscaras' childhood, quote-unquote, best friend / rival. And we get to meet a whole bunch of different cast of characters as the series progresses. And mild spoilers, but the most recent arc that ended leading into what's going on in the manga right now, we get a new party member that isn't a woman, but a guy named Gokuraku, who is incredibly vital for the arc that he was introduced to, and now is part of the main team, and is helping out in magic acquisitions and the advancement of magic technology in the Witches Association. And this balances out the main cast, or at least the main 4, of Ichi, Desscaras, Komugi, and Gokuraku. These 4 characters are main cast, and that's not really counting, at the moment, Uroro, who is kind of dormant within Ichi, kind of aware of everything, but does want Ichi to die, because if he dies, he will basically be free again. But that's not really the case. Ichi the Witch is a very interesting and cool, imaginative fantasy manga, with magic and incredible world building, with just the baseline formula to go on for a good amount of time. Like within the first opening chapters, many saw that if the series would be allowed to continue and was growing in popularity and sales, it could well go on to be around Iruma's length, if not longer. And that is the beauty of Ichi the Witch. Based off of the sheer plot line of the series, with Ichi now going on magic acquisitions and stuff like that for all these missions for the Witch Association and helping people and taking on all these different magics, the base concept of hunting magics is incredible, because not just do we have the baseline trials for each of these magics that are supposed to be mostly unique to each one to give a bit of an extra challenge to those that want to acquire these type of abilities and spells, and present really good challenges to our main characters, but you add in Ichi's hunter perspective, how his life experience in hunting wildlife and applying them to the magics, because they are, I guess to an extent, a type of wildlife. And by applying this strategy of hunting to his baseline magic acquisitions for the most part, he is doing things that can get him to acquire magic in out-of-the-box thinking ways that a regular witch would not think of, because there is a way of doing things for the most part, and thus Ichi is the outlier with the way of treating it like hunting basic animals and stuff like that, which leads to many hilarious moments in the manga where you can have Komugi basically pretend to be a mossy area to catch a mushroom magic, to the point where he basically just dices up a giant shark magic into sashimi to clear its conditions to be fabulous, and for some reason that works. It's just incredible. Or just something really comedic and simple, where he finds a fox magic within the opening chapters, and literally tricks it like a regular fox, and then hunts it down, essentially, and beats it, acquiring it. And it's just hilarious. The comedy in this manga is also on point as well, not just with the comedic timing and how these characters interact with each other, but Usazaki's artwork does a really great job of presenting the comedic moments and just the insane range of emotion that is Desscaras as well, who is probably the fan favorite character at this point. I know she's mine and my co-host on Panel Focus, Shonen Pulse, favorite character in the manga, as we will glaze her to no end. But Desscaras is definitely the very powerful mentor type character to be relatively, OP to an extent, and she shows it when she jumps onto the scene. And we don't see her fight that often in the manga so far, because this is Ichi's story, and when we see her fight in the rare instances that we do, it's always a spectacle, and it's something to be just in awe of. And she isn't the strongest witch for no reason, but what makes us love Desscaras isn't mainly the fact that she's OP as fuck. She is just insanely narcissistic, and also just one of the funniest characters in the series. Her personality is relatively all over the place. She's a bit full of herself. She'll try and teach Ichi, but treats him like a rabid animal just for the fact that he is a country bumpkin. She will just do whatever she wants for the most part, but she has the underlying depth of being a kind, caring person, and doesn't want to basically be someone that puts her problems on Ichi, who is still a kid at this point. I don't want to spoil actual plot beats in the manga and stuff about Desscaras in this video, because you have to read it for yourself. But her motivations for doing things, why she's taken in Ichi towards the end, and leads to a very big, important decision that happens right now, it's currently in the manga for an unforeseen amount of time, as it's an important plot beat for Ichi's character and for the overarching story of the manga, is just absolutely incredible, and shows the amount of care that goes into making each of these characters, and Desscaras being the standout, at least in my opinion. Osamu Nishi knows how to write characters. She knows how to introduce characters as one thing, and either quickly or progressively peel back the layers of these characters, getting us a more inside view of them and what makes them who they are, whether it be something involving their origins or their life experiences in general, and how they interact with others to show what their true personality is like and why they act the way that they do. Or just have Desscaras be the most self-centered person in the world, to the point where she has her own fan club and just writes her own damn books, and to the point where she literally draws her own recaps of previous events and arcs and chapters with her own crude, over-the-top drawings, to the point where you're like, I would read this entire manga if it was just drawn and narrated by Desscaras. This is just funny as hell. I know I kind of glazed Desscaras' character just now, but let's be honest, whoever reads this manga doesn't do the same. You need to reread the series, because Desscaras is queen and no one else takes that throne away from her at all. But anyway, I glazed Desscaras' character, but Ichi's character is someone that progressively gets more and more interesting, because he's a very simple country bumpkin, essentially, who has spent basically his entire life by himself, who would just go down into the nearby town to trade furs for specific spices or things and equipment for his home in the mountains. But as he gets introduced in the world of witches, we see the fish out of water scenario and his perspective shifting and changing, but still having that kind of oblivious basic bumpkin that we all knew from chapter 1. But seeing how he grows and matures as a person, his interactions and relationship with the main cast of characters, whether it be Desscaras as his mentor / older sister figure, with Komugi, who could be basically his own best friend or sister, or if you really want to go into shipping wars, his potential love interest, if you really want to go that far, and the character of Gokuraku, who has most recently been introduced to be kind of his best bro at this point, with everything that they've gone through. But the characters in the story are definitely the main drawing point for all of us, outside of the incredible artwork that we have seen in this manga, but still, these characters are fantastic. You get to learn who they are, even in this short amount of time. We're barely 50 chapters in at the point of recording this video, and I want to see more. I want to see them develop. I want to see them go through personal struggles and overcome them. I love these main cast of characters and even the side characters. Shirobadana is honestly a steal as a show, even when Desscaras sometimes is on screen, just for her sheer personality, just like in general. But I don't think anything in the series could have hit as hard as it did with someone other than Osamu Nishi doing the artwork, and Shiro Usazaki does a fantastic job. I was glazing her artwork in general at the beginning of this video when I was talking about her, but the way she helps with character designs, how she uses colors and color pages and color spreads and even the volume covers, how she just paints this fantastical world with just the way paneling is done in this manga in really fun and interesting ways, and is able to portray characters' mental states, especially with the most recent arc in the manga that just finished with Goku Raku, because my lord, did that arc make me very, very on edge and nervous with the characters, with how deeply we went into the visualization of everything that happened in that arc. The magic, the designs themselves, everything in this manga just feels like someone that not only is good at what they do, but puts so much love and care into everything that they draw. She knows what she's doing, and with Osamu Nishi behind her, this just feels like an unstoppable creative team that could make something truly special from this point forward. And I pray that since Ichi the Witch so far is not only getting some really great buzz and popularity online in manga spaces, but if the sales keep going up from now, it can in fact be one of Shonen Jump's big hits. Because right now in Shonen Jump, while I think we still have a lot of great manga in this magazine in general, between Battle Shonen, sports, and romance series, in terms of Battle Shonen, we have good stuff, but outside of One Piece, the only other manga that's really kind of grown in popularity, especially over the last year and a half now, is Kagurabachi. I'll make a video on Kagurabachi soon. I've been wanting to make one on that. I also cover that on my podcast, Shonen Pulse, as well, alongside Ichi the Witch and other manga. But Kagurabachi over the last year has been propped up to be, well, one of Shonen Jump's new up-and-coming manga. It surpassed its memes, and it's doing fantastic in sales, to the point where now there are rumors that, like, Side Games Productions might be the anime studio to make its anime within the next 2 years. And I'm excited for that. But Jump needs its next big hit, and while Sakamoto Days' anime is doing well, and the manga is about to end for Sakamoto Days as well, it never hit that level of sheer popularity that many of the other manga have, well, had over the last couple of years, especially now that JJK and My Hero have finished and Black Clover is now on a quarterly schedule. We don't have anything that has truly taken the world by storm, but Ichi the Witch has been slowly building up that popularity and that notoriety from the last year. And as it keeps going, once the manga's physical volume comes out, I believe in November, if I'm correct. Just check now, it comes out in February, that is my bad. But once the manga comes out and more people end up reading the physical volumes, by that point, we might also end up getting the potential for an anime adaptation. As I see from each volume released, it has gotten roughly the same, if not more, in sales with each volume release, and I believe it also jumps into the top 50 every single time a manga volume releases in terms of the Oricon weekly sales. Thank you, Joe_K on Twitter. Go follow that guy. He gives you the weekly top 50 manga volumes of the week every single week. Fantastic. But the popularity of Ichi the Witch has been slowly rising over the years, and with the Iruma-kun fan base that is slowly trickling over to Ichi the Witch as well, because they love Osamu Nishi, as well as Uzuzuki just building up a following online with her artwork in general, Ichi the Witch will essentially become one of Shonen Jump's next leading figures. And with the structure of how Ichi will go on these hunts for magics, and with this vast world we have, and I didn't even mention this earlier, but the tease of the overarching villain being the World Hater magic, which I don't want to get into right now because that's spoilery stuff, Ichi the Witch has the formula to go on for a good long while, and with that good long while, to build up and become something that the general audience will end up truly appreciating. And I cannot wait to see how this manga will, well, grow and evolve as it goes on. This is a creative team that is passionate for what they do. You feel it in the writing and in the artwork, especially with the characters and how the world has been built. And I expect nothing but great things from this series and from these two creatives, these two artists, for what they have given us over last year. And I truly hope that Shonen Jump does not do something stupid to cancel this series, because this could very well be, alongside Kagurabanchi, the true rise of the next generation of Weekly Shonen Jump's big hitters. But hey, what do I know? I'm just someone that reads a crap ton of manga and just ends up liking a lot of stuff that he ends up reading for the most part. What do you guys think? Did this video convince you to go read Ichi the Witch and support the series? Are there any other manga that you think in Weekly Shonen Jump could be some of the best in that magazine that has been around for a bit but just hasn't gotten that type of popularity or an anime adaptation just yet? Were you already a fan of Nishi and Usuzuki? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you're enjoying Ichi the Witch, if you're reading it already, and if this just ended up reigniting your love for the series all over again. And don't forget to recommend this to your friends at home as well that love manga, even if they don't love manga. Throw it in their face so they can read peak fiction. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, as well as what other series you'd like me to make these recommendation or just discussion-based videos on in the future. And once more, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. More recommendation videos and just deep dive discussions on stuff coming in the future outside of my usual stuff, because I want to break out a bit more. And this just seems like a lot of fun to do. Also, final message of the video. Desscaras is queen, Desscaras is life. No one can take that away from you. She is the greatest thing to ever come in fiction in general. She is amazing. And I would gladly have a mini prequel of Desscaras being the MC.